What is going on, gentlemen? Welcome to another episode here at the Mask and Health Solutions Podcast. And today it is a beautiful day, just in general. I hope you guys are doing spectacular. I hope you guys are doing good. And I hope you guys are just making the best out of another day that we have here on this planet. Lord knows, our time is limited. Sometimes I reflect on that and I think about, the podcast and all that good stuff and how important it is for us, you, me, and everybody just, share the knowledge that we have and the knowledge that we learn and all that good stuff to make sure that we can just, not just enhance your member, but enhance every aspect of life, of your life, of my life, of the people around you. And for me, that's kind of why I started Mask and Health Solutions, is to just explore as many different realms of male, health, just energy, all that stuff, because I think everything is tied in. And if we're truly going to do this from a holistic approach, I want to leave no stone unturned, man. So I got in contact with Tom Paladino, right? And Tom, he specializes in Scalar Light. Scalar Light and Scalar Energy is basically something that he says is like the energy that comes from the stars and from the sun. And he's made an apparatus in regard to it all. And check it out and go to scalarlight.com. And I'll read you his bio, and then I'll talk a little bit about about what we talked about during the podcast. Tom began research with Scalar Energy during his undergraduate years after developing a deep admiration for the father of Scalar Energy research or knowledge, Nikola Tesla. I think you guys are aware of who Tesla is. If not, you can check out his book and read into that, man. You want to talk about mysterious? And Tesla had a whole bunch of things that I was interested that they try to keep off the books. But, if you're into it, check out Forbidden Knowledge Podcast. There's some interesting episodes there. Anyways, he was also able to study the work of a man, Hieronymus, who continued research on scalar energy. Hieronymus's major contributions included unbinding the RNA, DNA bonds of microbes plaguing the agricultural industry, rendering them harmless. The existence of such energy, not found within the electromagnetic spectrum, fascinated Tom. Inspired by these findings, he pursued a course of independent study seeking to better understand and subsequently, oh my gosh, having trouble with that one, harness scalar energy through the development of an instrument called Scalar Light. And that instrument is the one that he designed and the one that he actually showed me. And he uses scalar energy to basically, work with a fat metabolism program, addictive behavior, chemical detox, digestive enzyme, female hormone, male hormone program, mineral and precious stone. What he uses is the energy that comes from the sun. And with a signature that he has on a picture, if you decide to work with him, he's able to connect that from afar. And this is the kind of energy, and I kind of feel with all the things that are going on in the world that we have to explore these avenues, because in my opinion, I think there's going to be a lot of changes coming to this place that we know, this beautiful world that we live in. And they can't suppress this knowledge anymore. And I truly feel that Tom's work is something that we should pay attention to, and something that could better our lives as men and just society as a whole. So I hope you guys enjoy this podcast. And just know that I've linked all the links are in the description below. I hope you guys enjoy this episode. And again, if you want to reach out to Tom, I'm going to make sure I have all his information there. And be sure to check out his website. His website is scalarlight.com. That is scalarlight.com. All right, guys, without any further ado, let's jump into today's episode and learn a little bit more about scalar energy with Tom Paladino. Before we get started, one more thing. If you want to get any PE gear, be sure to check out TotalManShop.com. That is TotalManShop.com. And use the promo code MHS2020. Promo code is MHS2020 and get 12% off. Be sure to check out their wide variety of all kinds of good quality PE equipment. All right? And that's promo code MHS2020 for 12% off. And the website, once again, is TotalManShop.com. Welcome to another episode here at the Masculine Health Solutions Podcast. Today, I got Tom Paladino, who's going to break down a little bit of what scalar energy is and how it can benefit us. Tom, how are you today, sir?
I am well. Conrad, thank you for the invitation. You're a gentleman and a scholar. Pleasure to be here.
Hey, man, it's awesome to have you here. And I was going through your website, learning more about scalar energy. And it's interesting because, there was somewhere else that I was reading about the power of light and how to harness it and how at the end of the day, we're just consuming, different versions of light. And I kind of found it interesting that you connected with me. And I was like, hey, you know what? That'd be awesome to have Tom on to discuss more about what scalar energy really is. And for us that are, uneducated in this subject, like myself, could you break down what scalar energy is and what you do a little bit more in depth?
Scalar energy. Everybody's an expert at scalar energy. It's sunlight or starlight. I work with scalar energy, which is not electricity. It's a different technology than that of electrical engineering. So my point is I have scalar energy instruments. We're able to harness this scalar energy from the sun and the stars. And to make this very familiar to people, scalar energy is known as chi, prana, consciousness, 0-point energy. So we are working with that energy spectrum that is not embraced by academia, but it's very real. Scalar energy is not electricity, but it's everywhere. It's consciousness. And we'll see how this consciousness is going to change the world as a technology.
That's interesting. You know what's funny too? It's that connection. I don't know why it seems like academia always tries to deny this part of things, because it's almost like,
I don't get it. In order to do that, you'd have to deny the universe.
Yeah.
Scalar energy is the energy of the stars. How can you deny it? Or how can you avoid it? Or ignore it? Call it whatever verb you're going to use. It's a shame, but we're starting to see a change in the attitude of many people.
I think because, you know what, like I kind of find that recently too, a lot more people are open to it. And I think that's kind of changing, like really the course of things. I think academia, sure, it's kind of like it views things from a very, it's a word I want to use. Just I want to say they want to oversimplify things, or sometimes it seems like they want to overcomplicate things. But when it comes to consciousness and that, I think it's just because it's in a realm that they can't really quantify, and because of that, it's almost like let's dispel it as woo woo and let's not discuss it.
You're right. You're right. Now, if this is indeed the universal life force energy, my contention is it's from God. It's a divine energy, and you will not be able to measure it. Because if you can look at certain measurements, certain basic units that we use, such as the kilometer, or the liter, or the gallon, or the inch, or the mile, or the pint, etc. Those are all finite units. So scalar energy, if it's the infinite energy of the universe, and it's everywhere, you cannot measure infinite. So this is going to be one of the considerations moving forward. You can measure a stream of electrons. It's a current voltage. You cannot measure scalar energy. There is no basic unit. It's infinite energy.
Which is, yeah, it reminds me of the double split experiment. I don't know if you remember that one, where it's kind of like, they shot the light through and then consciousness was there and it altered, how those lasers came out. The thing is, we know this, but why do you think it's like, why do you think it's kind of kept under wraps?
Well, some people are simply not aware of that. And it's our job then to educate them. But there's a nefarious side to this, because there are powers that be that realize that this is the free energy of the stars. What am I speaking about? Scalar energy. It's from the stars. It's free energy. And if this is free energy, it is a threat to so many people in the world. It's a threat to the military-industrial complex. Now, that is one of the motivating forces that keeps this under wraps.
So when it comes to free energy, this kind of ties in with Tesla, which I know that you were a fan of.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about how Tesla was using this at the end of his career?
You're right. At the latter part of Tesla's career, he was devoting most of his time, if not the significant majority of his time, to scalar energy research. He was no longer interested in AC electricity. And pursuant to that idea, Tesla developed a tower in Long Island. And this tower, it was called Wardenclyffe, was a free energy tower. He was able to capture star energy from this tower in Long Island, New York. And if you look closely at any photograph of this Wardenclyffe tower, there's no electrical lines. And at that time, it was out in the country in Long Island. This is 1904, 1905. Oh. So a lot of people started to say, what was he doing out there in the country without a power generator? He discovered that scalar energy could be harnessed from the stars. And that's why he placed this tower out in the country, in Long Island, New York, without any electrical wires, without an electrical substation anywhere around. He had developed free energy, and he was able to send scalar energy by way of wireless transmission. So that tower was the first successful scalar energy, free energy instrument device. Now that, to me, that's quite fascinating. Tesla back in 1903, 1904 had the solution for the energy crisis. But very few people realize that, because the powers that be do not want us to have free energy. The powers that be, this cabal, the Illuminati, wants to control mankind. Mm-hmm. And these are the nefarious people that we have to overcome. We have to start looking for new solutions, and scalar energy as a free energy is one of those new solutions.
So, I mean, because I remember hearing about that too, about how if we had this free energy, like even going further back, I remember listening to a podcast recently where they were talking about the Tartarian Empire and how apparently they had used free energy. And I'm like, mind blown, I have to go do more research on that, because it's something that just seems like it wouldn't make sense for a company like Exxon, Texaco, General Electric. It would never really work to serve any purpose in the way that they would like, which is honestly just to make cash money and then control us.
You're right. You're right. And we have to reverse that. We have to take the greed out of this system, and we have to make this energy, this technology accessible to most people in the world, if not everybody. So that's my design. I want to introduce scalar energy as free energy to mankind. And once the world sees really just how this is tenable, how significant of an impact this will make upon the world, and that this technology does exist, then people will start to help us.
So how is it that you use scalar energy to help people? Because I was going through your website and I saw that you use it with metabolism, right? To help with digestion, all that. How is it that you go about doing it and developing these programs?
Yeah. Now, keep in mind, when I'm working within this spectrum, it's, so to speak, it's not flesh and blood. It's informational energy. And I'm not working with Newtonian physics. So what am I getting at? When I work with people by way of a photograph. This is my photograph. People will email me a photograph, and I'll actually place a photograph of a person inside the instrument. So these instruments pick up the signature on a photograph. I never work with people or animals. I don't work with biological life. I only work with photographs, which is energetic life or scalar energy signatures. Now, I work with the custom-built instruments, and I'm actually able to place a photograph of a person inside one of these instruments. Now, is that clear to you? Can you see, Conrad?
I can see it. Yeah.
Okay. For the benefit of the audience, that's one of the scalar energy instruments that I work with. And I actually will assume emailed photographs from people around the world, and I will place their photograph inside this scalar energy instrument. That scalar energy instrument establishes a local environment, a scalar energy environment. And in so doing, I overcome space and time. I'm able to access the energy field on a photograph. Now, this has been established. I have established this, and my predecessor has established this. His name is Hieronymus. And Hieronymus actually had 3 patents from the United States, Canada, and Great Britain regarding these groundbreaking instruments, these scalar energy instruments. So with that in mind, this is a groundbreaking approach to use Tesla energy or scalar energy and to be able to access a person's aura or their force field by way of a photograph. Okay, so with that in mind, with that foundation in mind, that seminal understanding, I can use their photograph and detect upon the photograph a microbe or a toxin, and I can break apart or eradicate a toxin found on the photograph, or let's say a virus, a bacterium that I could identify in the photograph and destroy it, break it down, erase it, cure it, eradicate it, call it what you will, all through the quantum field. Now, that is considered to be non-local action, in which I can access any information in the universe. And that's what scalar energy does. You don't have to rely upon one particular point or one body of knowledge. The body of knowledge is the universe.
Yeah.
And that's what we tap into, universal consciousness.
Which is,
now,
yeah, go ahead.
This is fascinating.
Yeah,
to
no,
me.
to me as well, because I remember I read recently about the Akashic records, right? They're like, well, sometimes you just download this and, you just get full access to everything that exists. And I was like,
right.
Really? I'm like, that's a real
You're
thing.
Right. You're right. And, as opposed to having to read something on a computer screen or study a particular subject or learn a musical instrument, that can be downloaded by way of scalar energy. So that's the Akashic record. That's the mind of God. That is the divine intelligence that I'm speaking of. Well, see how much easier this is than working in the electromagnetic spectrum?
Yeah.
Of course. This is really, and that is one of the fundaments of a scalar energy paradigm. We're able to transcend time and space. Okay, we're no longer bound by Newtonian physics. And once we enter into that consciousness of God, that divine energy, we have access to the stars. We have access to consciousness. That's free energy. That's free learning. That's free healing. That's free knowledge. None of that can be controlled by the cabal.
No. Well, the thing is, it's outside of the realm. And that's the thing that I think at the end of the day, more people are waking up. And I do feel like there's been like a spiritual shift at the beginning of, this whole pandemic,
Yes.
Don't want to talk too much about that, but, I feel like at the beginning of 2020, it seemed as though there has been a shift. And I feel like a lot of people have been waking up and asking themselves, like, really what's going on, in this whole situation or this whole paradigm that we exist in. Because I think a lot of us are starting to see that, it's a lot bigger than this. And it's crazy how, well, not crazy, it's mind-boggling, when you come from that paradigm and now somebody comes and tells you, what, that concept that you've been told all your life, maybe it's not the truth. And for me, even for myself, like it's made a drastic change in my life where I started looking, internally, because you start to ask yourself, like, there's got to be more. And that whole consciousness shift is something that I think that exists, and it's something that's happening right now and we're living it. And for me, scalar energy makes perfect sense because it's almost like, you're right, it exists all around us. In the same way that, what, a lot of these electric waves that are surrounding me right now, like I got 5G next to me, which I know is not good, but that exists. And the fact that you're able to create something where you can pull that in and really, help people, eradicate disease and then use this energy for something positive. To me, I mean, I think it's spectacular.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's spectacular also. I concur with you. Now, keep in mind, the paradigm that I'm working in is not Newtonian physics. This is not what you learned in high school or college. This is a new dimension, so to speak. It's a new way of thinking. And this dimension, we've barely scratched the surface. It is consciousness, or what people call zero-point energy. So what's my point? There's 2 dimensions. There's 2 realities. Mm-hmm. I no longer work in the electromagnetic reality. I work in the reality of quantum energy, which is far superior to that of electromagnetic reality.
Just Can you elaborate a little bit further too about, you said that we were just scratching the surface. What else exists beneath?
Yeah. Well, okay. So now that we've had this conversation, consider now that scalar energy is the speed of thought, so to speak.
Mhm.
So we can access any event in the universe instantaneously. Okay. What is thinking? It's a scalar energy waveform. What is emotion? A scalar energy waveform. So once we're into that paradigm, we essentially have dominion over nature now. We're no longer bound, we're no longer observing the guideposts of a physical construct. We're outside of physicality. This is non-physical. And when you enter into that realm of non-physical reality, you're no longer subject to time and space. Well, with that in mind, this is the perfect communication system for the universe. There is no time lag. This is the perfect energy source for the universe. There is no decay of the signal. There is no entropy. The signal does not attenuate over time or distance. So we've tapped into perfect communication, perfect energy, free energy, clean energy, perfect quantum healing, all done through the informational field. And with that in mind, my goodness, eureka, correct? We've found a new way of solving our problem. You see, the electromagnetic spectrum encumbers us. The electromagnetic spectrum has guidelines. It's a certain box, and we have to abide by that box. And that box has walls. It's very rigid. Whereas scalar energy, it's not a box. It's the all-inclusive universe. And so we no longer inherit the problems of electromagnetic energy. Electromagnetic energy is fraught with problems, with drawbacks. There's a drawback at every step of the way. Scalar energy, there's no drawbacks.
Mind blowing, man. I mean, it's almost like the way I kind of see it is like we're swimming in a pool of scalar energy that we can't see, right? It's like consciousness is all around us. And I remember hearing this subject or somebody talk on it, how like, God exists. If he's omniscient, omnipresent, it's got to be inside of everything and around everything, right?
Yes.
And it sounds like that's kind of what scalar energy is.
It is. It's the omnipresence of God. And that's much to be preferred as to opposed to a current of electricity. Okay.
Yeah.
When we speak about electromagnetic energy, that's a flow of electrons. Okay, I understand, but that's really limited. And that there's many drawbacks to the flow of electrons. I'd much rather have the universe at my beck and call than to have to depend upon a current of electricity.
Well, a singular current can only do so much. Yeah.
Yes, it's limited. It's limited.
And what led you to actually make this discovery? Because now I'm curious, like, what set you down this path where you're like, something's off?
As a youngster, I'm not fooled by the Illuminati. As a youngster, I saw what Tesla was doing. I said, well, I looked at Wardenclyffe, I looked at his inventions, and nobody's been able to duplicate those inventions because nobody hasn't developed scalar energy instruments to the extent that Tesla has. So those were scalar energy instruments. And those instruments were unique, and that was the first model that would introduce to the world this new technology. I knew that when I was a youngster. I mean, that was rather apparent to me. And I simply said, well, why did this not take off? What was the impediment? Well, he was undermined. His work was valid. What the impediment was the cabal. So I've made it a point to get around that problem. I'm not going to in any way listen to the cabal or take orders from the cabal. So I've started this grassroots movement. And with this grassroots movement, we will introduce scalar energy to the world. And it's working quite well now. And, a podcast like yours serves to promulgate the message.
Yeah. Well, my whole thing is, the whole mission of mine is just, I want to get men healthy as possible. Like, and I just I look around, man, and it's completely nuts to me that over 50% of men are going to be overweight, in the next couple of years, if not obese. Men are just riddled with diabetes. the whole population in general. Like we're even seeing in kids. And my whole thing is that I just want to get as many people as healthy as possible.
Yeah.
Like,
Thank you.
and
it should be that way, and it should be there. And why are we so unhealthy? Well, one of the reasons is because the model, the infrastructure, call it what you will, does not work. It does not work. We spent a great deal of money on healthcare in the United States, Canada, and the Western world, throughout the world. What's the problem? Well, in part, the problem is our approach. It's not working. It's not working.
Well, it's all based off, like you said, I mean, it's almost like if we can't quantify it and make money off of it, it doesn't exist. And I think we probably shrugged off way too many good ideas for too long. And that's kind of what's led me, even for myself, like I started looking into homeopathic, medicine, naturopathic medicine. And one thing that I found kind of strange is that Rockefeller decided to buy, the medical system. Was it a couple of years, or I think it's like 1920 or something. I'm probably getting the dates off. But he had a naturopathic doctor and a homeopath with him at all times. And I'm like, that's kind of strange.
Yeah.
Thought they were quacks, right? Like,
yeah. No, you're absolutely right. And the Rockefellers went on to buy up and bribe the universities around the world, and then subsequently bribe government officials. And they've created this monopoly, let's just face it, sadly, a lot of people don't realize this, but these evil families are controlling much of our commerce. And in so doing, they control, or at least they have indirect control over government and universities and the media, et cetera. So I propose a new paradigm. I don't work for the Rockefellers. I rebuke them. They're evil people. So I want to work with God, and I want to work with God's energy. That's what I'm concerned about. And we're going to bring forward this new technology without the Rockefellers, without the cabal.
And focusing on health, which is what, is the biggest thing that's missing. Yeah. What's one of your favorite success stories that you've had, or just share a couple about how, you've used scalar energy to change lives?
Okay, I'm going to do another screen share if we can, and I want to share this with the audience. That's, again, a scalar energy instrument, and I want to make this very clear as to how this works. If you could see on the left, there's a magnified photograph of the herpes virus. Mm-hmm. And then I place my photograph inside this influencing well. Now, remember, this is an information system. So the information of the herpes virus is shared with my photograph as a person. So the two quantum fields intermix. The herpes virus intermixes, associates, communicates with my photograph. And that configuration, if I had herpes, that instrument would pick out the herpes virus in my information field and destroy it, or break it apart, or transmute it. So this is an information system. We don't work with physical form. We work with non-physical information. So the information found on the herpes photograph shares with my photograph as a person. Jeez. And that configuration, that setup within the influencing well, would serve to eradicate the herpes virus from my information field. Now, keep in mind, I only work with photographs. So the photograph carries the information. And that's the new science, matching up germs, microbes, with photographs of people.
That's incredible.
Yeah. That's how this information system works. It's new, it's groundbreaking. My predecessor, Hieronymus, had good success with it. Now I continue on with his work. Galen Hieronymus was an American inventor, and he worked with scalar energy instruments. And I will say that he was right on, and my research following in his footsteps is right on. It's accurate, it's valid. We can pinpoint any microbe on a photograph of a person and destroy, eliminate, eradicate, cure that microbe found on the photograph.
Wow. The
new science of scalar energy. If you can remember when you saw your first computer or your first iPhone.
Yeah.
Okay, this is the first scalar energy instrument that you've seen in application. And it's nothing like Newtonian physics. There's no physical form here. It's all information.
Has there been, there's nobody else in the world that has
no
at all?
I've studied Hieronymus, a great inventor, and I've taken his instrument and his schematics, and I continue on with his work. Now, sadly, his work was relegated to the dustbin. Nobody was really interested in his. He was born in 1895, and nobody has carried on with his work. He's long deceased. I am carrying on with his work. I continue his work. But from my vantage point, from looking at the internet, nobody has taken on and followed up on the work of Galen Hieronymus that I know of. And very few people have followed up on the work of Nikola Tesla.
Yeah.
And sadly, some of those people who are following up on Tesla's work are following up on his electromagnetic career,
Yes.
not on his scalar energy career. A lot of people don't realize that Tesla had two careers.
Where it's almost like he was doing one for the masses and one for himself, it seems, kind of behind closed doors.
Yes, he was. The latter part of his life, he was working behind closed doors. And it was indeed quite fascinating. And, various governments and various people in the know realized his prowess, his intellectual prowess, and what he was doing. But it really still escapes many people just how profound the thinking of Nikola Tesla was.
Well, I mean, even for myself, I remember I read his book a couple of years ago. Well, actually, probably like 10 years ago. And I mean, the way they were playing, I think it was Bell, if I'm not mistaken, who was like killing elephants and talking about how his use of electricity was evil.
Edison was doing that. Yeah.
Was it Edison? Oh, okay. Yeah. Or then he was all like, "Oh no."
Edison tried to dissuade people to use AC electricity. Tesla was promulgating AC electricity. So Edison went as far as electrocuting animals in order to prove that AC electricity was dangerous. Well, used the wrong way, yes, AC electricity will give you a shock. But that goes to show you that there are ulterior motives here with many people in technology. And Edison was not the scientist that Tesla was.
No, I don't know. He was a great marketer. He was a great marketer. He was a great businessman.
Yes, he was. But he can't hold a candle to Tesla.
No, not at all. And that's kind of the big difference between that and why they had to make one out to be like, hey, he's pretty much crazy. But this guy, man, this guy's where it's at. But one of the questions I have now is like, so you use scalar energy to heal and, recognize those things. What about to generate energy? Like, would it be able to charge stuff as well? Like, let's say you can.
Yes. Yes. Now, let me say this. When I'm working with people by way of a photograph, I can work with one person by way of a photograph, or 10 people, or 100,000 people. Today in my laboratory, I had the ability, and I'm working currently with about 500,000 people. I have 500,000 miniaturized photographs that I'm working with. Now, what does that mean? I'm sending free energy, scalar energy, to the quantum field of 500,000 people, 500,000 people. So if that's true, my instrument is working like a scalar energy satellite, sending information to 500,000 points in the world. Now, all I have to do is increase the power, and instead of sending scalar energy information by way of a photograph, I could send it to a building or a factory or a school.
What?
Yeah, so I have a free energy instrument. Any scalar energy instrument is a free energy instrument. And right now I'm sending free energy to the information field of people around the world by way of the photograph. Now, keep in mind, all of this is wireless transmission. It's a wireless transmission of energy. So I am practicing free energy. And I'm able to illuminate, for instance, the brain waves or the chakras. I'm doing that subtly. But if I were to increase this energy, then imagine I could illuminate a school or a library or a home. Okay, Tesla was using free energy, scalar energy, to run a car, or to send energy at Wardenclyffe. He was able to illuminate light bulbs at a distance. He perfected the technique, and the fact that he perfected this free energy device really intimidated the robber barons of the day.
Yeah, but it's almost like you can intensify and then have like a focal point. Is kind of the way that, from the layman's terms, from the layman. But it's almost like, yeah, you focus on something, you magnify on it, and it's almost like, okay, boom, this thing's running and it's not plugged into anything.
Yes, yes, exactly. It's not plugged into anything. Now, you got to wrap your head around this, people.
Yeah.
Where was the power plant that Tesla was using? The stars. What are the power plants of the future? The stars. Do we need coal plants? No. Do we need oil wells? No. Do we need nuclear reactors? No. All we need is the stars. The power plant of the future are the stars.
Wow. Like, because I remember, here's another thing too that I'll run by you quickly, but I remember reading about how the pyramids were used as a way to basically draw in the powers or the power of the stars, the power of the sun. Have you come across anything related to that as well?
Many pyramids are capacitors for scalar energy. Yeah, many pyramids capture scalar energy, their geometry, their design.
Yeah, because I remember reading about sacred geometry and learning about that as well, where it's like, I mean, for me, I love all these subjects, so the more the merrier. But it's one of those things that eludes me. And then talking to somebody that's actually done it blows my mind.
The golden mean is incorporated into a scalar wave. A scalar wave is a double helix, and if you look at the scalar wave in ratio and proportion, the golden mean 1.618, that number, that value is incorporated into a scalar wave. So every scalar wave is really a transcendent wave. It's a transcendent number. And hence that, if you will, is the motif. That's at least the mathematical motif behind a scalar wave. The golden mean, the golden ratio, the divine proportion. Some people call it the phi spiral. Yeah. And that's a transcendent number.
I mean, I gotta read more about sacred geometry, see if I can make some myself. No, but going back to, so how did you put it all together, man? Because it seems like it would take years.
God gave me the wisdom. Yeah. God has given me the wisdom.
That's interesting. And then you just have your laboratory at your house. You haven't worked on anything or have you worked on a bigger version of what you created? Or
I want to keep it small, and I'll tell you why. If you miniaturize this, the expenses don't become exorbitant. You could build a Tesla tower of 100 feet like you did in Long Island, and then you go bankrupt. So I'm trying to keep everything small, miniaturize everything. So my approach is to introduce this to the world by a grassroots movement, by podcasts, radio shows, and by speaking engagements.
Yeah.
And I know this might sound counterintuitive, but I cannot rely upon the media today because the media is controlled. The media is controlled. And a lot of people might say, well, Tom, if you've made these discoveries, why don't you share it? Well, I have, and the media is ignoring it. And if a lot of people are in the know, they realize that the media is really controlled by the banking families.
Yeah.
And if there's anything that's unfavorable to their pocketbook, the media will obey the banking families and will not promulgate a new technology. And that's where I'm at right now. So it's all grassroots. God is with me. We move forward, and we will be victorious. We are victorious.
Yeah.
I won't align myself with these evil-minded people. And I know you understand that, Conrad.
Yeah, I do.
Those in the audience, if you don't quite understand that, well, read about the central bank of the United States.
Yeah.
And how our central bank, the Federal Reserve in the United States, is now controlled, not by the government, but rather by these banking families.
Yeah.
Now, is that fair? No. Why would our money supply be controlled by a group of banking families? So if you really study this cabal, you see their evil machinations, and it is a powerful cabal. They're very evil.
No, 100% agree with you, because I feel like what you said there about the news, the media, all that stuff, it is controlled. And it's almost like there is a narrative, and that narrative, if it's not followed, will just be shunned down. It can't it can't be brought to the light. Ironically, Scalar Light will, because you can't really, when it comes to darkness, all you need is a candle to light up a room, right? So
yes, you do. And thank you for being the candle today. Thanks,
Hey,
Con.
I'm not the candle. You're the candle.
Well,
You're the
together.
one, you're the light man. Yeah, we're in this together, man. But for me, like I said, it's just something that makes perfect sense. And it's almost like the best time is now. And I think a lot of people, including myself, are looking for alternative health because we're seeing so many cracks in the system that they've created for us. And before we close off today, one thing I do want to ask you though, what do you see in the future? I want to talk about the future for the next
It's a
little bit.
message of hope. It's hope. It's a message of hope. If people always rely upon God and use God as your guide, it's a message of hope. And I hope people will see the merit of my technology, but to a greater extent, depend upon God and people realize that many organizations out there, many governments are not working on your behalf.
Not at all.
Don't be naive. I frequently say this. If my business, I'll speak about the United States government. I live in the United States. If my business was run like the United States government, I'd be bankrupt. It's so poorly run.
Yeah.
It's so poorly run. No, I scratch my head. I say, how can this be so poorly run, so poorly managed? So what's my point? Well, we in the world today, we require performance for sports athletes, right?
Yep.
For entertainers, for businesses, for schools, right? Schools have frequent tests. You have to pass a test.
Yep.
Okay, why don't we have performance for our politicians? Where's the performance? Where's the performance guarantee? We have performance for first graders. You have to pass a test in first grade. Why don't we have performance for our politicians? I think that people are starting to realize that the time has come. We want to see performance. If you can perform, then you could lead us.
100%. 5 years from now, 10 years from now, what do you see with Scalar Energy? Like, let's say from a very positive, optimal kind of standpoint, what would you like to see? Almost like the eradication of power plants and let's say some new Scalar Energy kind of plants set up. What would you like to see?
Within the next 5 to 10 years, the world will have to embrace this. The movement isn't going anywhere without people. Everything boils down to people and how they accept the technology and if they really want it. Otherwise, I'll just be a quiet researcher until the day I die, frankly. So within the next 5 to 10 years, I think people will embrace this and they will see the merit of this. And then once that is indeed in place, then people will see that let's put this to use. We have to incorporate this. So first is education over the next 5 years. Then placing this and incorporating in our lives the next 10, 15 years. Yeah, that's the trajectory that I could probably hope for. And it all starts with podcasts like this. So once again, thank you, Conrad.
Hey, no worries. And legacy wise, let's say, on that last breath that we're all going to take, because, I accept that too, even though I'm young, but, I think about it a lot now. What is the one thing that you want to leave the world with Scalar Energy and what you've done?
A sense of hope. There's a better way. This new technology will make obsolete so many problems that cannot be solved. And one of the things this will make obsolete is our current military-industrial complex. That's not working. It's inefficient. Yeah. It's inefficient. The military-industrial complex is inefficient. And we need a new paradigm. We need a new model. This is the new model. This is the new way of living. This technology is going to change the world.
I firmly believe that, man. I'm with you. And I'd like to just say thank you for coming on the show today, Tom. Thank you for telling us about, Scalar Energy. Tell us about where we can find you, about anything that you're offering, your services. Let us know all that good stuff, man.
I want people to take a look at least on the website, scalarlight.com. SCALAR, scalarlight.com. Now, we have a free 15-day trial. Anybody in the world can visit the website and upload. You're going to send us your photograph. You're going to email, upload us your photograph. And we'll work with you for free for 15 days. You can include your family. We balance the chakras, we eliminate microbes, eradicate microbes, and we assemble nutrients. We do all of that by way of your photograph. Now, keep in mind, this is the new science in which your force field, your photograph, is accessed. We don't work with physicality. So in order to prove it to the world, you have to demonstrate. So that's my demonstration. Go to the website and demonstrate to yourself whether this works or not.
Love that. Love that. Like you were talking about performance, right? It's like we can talk all we want, but if you can't perform, then it's all for nothing.
Talk is cheap. So, look at my website. You'll see 3,000 testimonies from people around the world. And that lends itself to how this energy performs. I believe in performance. Look at the testimonies, the firsthand account that people give us. They feel better. Something happened. That's the performance. All about performance. Talk is cheap. Look at the website.
I love that. Tom, it was an absolute pleasure having you on today.
Yeah.
And honest, I can't wait to have another conversation with you anyways. So just so you know, I'll probably have you on once again.
Yes. Thank you so much, Conrad, and I enjoyed myself.
Thank you. Until the next one, guys. You know, man.